Welcome to March 2023's Libraries Connecting Texas E-Rate webinar. This month, we are approaching the 471 deadline. That is on March 28th, Tuesday of next week. And we'll be discussing a few other items on today's webinar. Today we have both myself, Kyle Lewis, and our other LCT team member, Cheryl Miller, on the call. And we'll be discussing a summary of the LCT funding so far, funding year 2023, Form 471 action items that still need to be addressed prior to that deadline, and then also after certifying. And then Cheryl will be discussing the funding year 2022 invoicing that is going to be coming up pretty shortly after that deadline for the Form 471, and then also talking about next steps. All right, and here is our summary of LCT funding so far. For the funding year 2023 to 2024 application period, 84 LCT library applications have been filed for funding year 2023 so far, and that number is increasing as we approach that deadline on Tuesday, March 28th. $665,700.43 in LCT pre-discount funding has been requested for funding year 2023 so far, and that number will increase as final applications are certified. 54 funding request numbers, FRNs, are in initial review status, and 36 FRNs are wave ready, and will be able to move to a funding commitment once funding waves begin as early as April. One FRN is currently waiting for a response to a Program Integrity Assurance, PIA, inquiry, and we'll be discussing those later in the webinar as well. So this is a representation of funding by year for E-Rate libraries. As you can see, there has been a lot of growth since our first funding year with the LCT program in 2018, and it has definitely changed over time. I think we might have some more specific figures available as well, but it is a interesting trend to see. And applications filed so far for funding year 2023 would place us, probably going to place us at about similar to 2022 funding. Average bandwidth by year for funding year 2018, the average bandwidth for LCT libraries started at 57 megabits per second. And that has expanded over the years to 746 megabits per second for funding year 2022. And so far, for applications certified, the average bandwidth for LCT libraries is 932. And that is going to be potentially increasing as well as more LCT libraries certify. So let's discuss funding year 2023 action items that still need to be addressed, whether you've certified the Form 471 or still need to certify it. So upon completion of your drafted Form 471, if you can please give us a chance to review the draft Form 471 before you certify, please be sure to click on Save and Share to share the draft with LCT and EPC. And that will be before you click on Continue to Certification and before you ever click on a button that says Certify. This will give us a chance to do a quality assurance review of the application, and then we can send it to you for certification in the EPC portal, and along with an email with instructions on how to certify. As we're approaching the deadline, we'll try to review and return these within 24 hours once requested. This will allow us to minimize mistakes on the Form 471 that may require a correction or present funding issues in the future. And as a reminder, the deadline to certify is Tuesday, March 28th, 2023 at 10:59 p.m. Central Time, essentially midnight Eastern Time. So let's talk about PIA review inquiries. If your application has not been funded yet and has not moved to waive ready status yet, you may receive a Program Integrity Assurance PIA review inquiry and notification. If you receive a PIA review inquiry, you should receive an email from the Universal Service Administrative Company with that notification on it and a link directly into the EPC portal to that review inquiry. If you receive one of these, either in your spam and junk folder or your regular inbox, please reach out to us for assistance in drafting an appropriate response. In a lot of cases, they're just requesting documentation or further information to help validate what was included on the Form 471 application that you certified. And we can help you determine what exactly they may be searching for there. But if you do not receive a PIA review inquiry or notification email, no action is necessary, and that is normal as well. So if you are going to be transitioning service providers or upgrading service in the funding year 2023, starting on July 1st, 2023, or later, absolutely just check in and make sure that services are going to begin on the date that you think they are. Typically, this would be July 1st, 2023, to keep with the funding year 2023 start date. And also make sure that your old services are going to be terminated when the new services begin, so as to avoid overlap in that billing and hopefully avoid any headache with having to deal with double bills from either two service providers or two sets of service from the same provider. If you need any help with that, reach out to us and we can help you in knowing how to reach out to your service provider about that. Additionally, if you're going to be changing bandwidth, upgrading bandwidth, double check your first bill after the upgrade is completed to make sure that you are being billed correctly and that that new service is being reflected on that billing. And again, contact us with any concerns related to change in service provider or change in bandwidth. And now I'll be passing it off to Cheryl Miller, who will be discussing invoicing.
Thanks, Kyle. We are going to talk a little bit about invoicing, which will be here, as Kyle said, before we know it. So if you want to go to the next slide, Kyle. If you are paying for services in full, you will need to file for reimbursement with a Form 472, which is also known as a BEAR. And then depending on what your discount is, will determine how much you will actually be requesting. And the example here on the slide shows an 80% discount that you can only ask for 80% of what you actually paid. There is also another method that is actually not on here. It's called SPI billing, and that is service provider invoicing. And that is where they are actually discounting your bill already. So in that case, you would not actually have to file a BEAR. So next slide, please. You have 120 days after the last day to receive services, which is usually June 30th, or 120 days after the Form 486 notification letter. And remember, this is for funding year 2022. So those are July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. Typically, that means your deadline for reoccurring or your monthly services is going to be October 28th of 2023. And then for your non-recurring services, so like your one-time charges, installation, things like that, would actually be January 28th of 2024. And then certainly if you need any help determining which deadline you fall into, just let us know and we'd be happy to help. And next slide. So just as a reminder, you want to start gathering your invoices for funding year 2022. So there's July 1st to June 30th, 2023, and check and see if you're getting either those monthly discounts with the SPY method or if you will need to file a bear. It's also a great opportunity that Kyle had mentioned earlier with any kind of bandwidth changes, price increases, price decreases, anything. You want to make sure that that's actually being reflected on your bill. And that'll actually help you whenever you start doing the reconciliation sheets for filing a bear. If you don't know what method you've used in the past, just let us know and we would be happy to look that up for you. And I think that's it on that one. So next slide. And then the things that are coming up next. It is going to be for SIPA requirements. There's 3 requirements listed here in order to be considered SIPA compliant. The internet safety policy that is enforced to prevent users access to harmful material or unlawful online activity. And that includes the technology protection measure, the second item there on the list. And that's just to either block or filter the material from actually getting through. Lastly, the public notice or hearing meeting that occurs for the proposal of the internet safety policy and the technology protection measures. Typically, that only has to happen once, but you want to check your local or state rules. Sometimes they do require, if there's any changes, that you will need to have another meeting or a hearing.
And just to add one thing on to that, you may just want to check to make sure that you have documentation of each of these on file. If you don't have that documentation on file, you can hold another public notice and hearing or meeting to shore up that documentation, make sure that you have that available to you. Yeah, that was it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle. And then on our next slide, we're actually going to talk about the Form 486, which that actually lets you know that the services have started for the library and also confirms that your SIPA compliance status. You must be SIPA compliant in order to actually certify that form. So after the funding commitment decision letter or the FCDL is received, we will actually send a copy of it to you along with a draft that we've created of the 486 with step-by-step instructions on how to log in and how to certify it. Before you ever log in, you want to make sure that you just double check all the information is correct and then reach out with any questions or concerns that you may actually have at that time. And then again, make sure that you're SIPA compliant before you actually certify. And Kyle, do you have anything else to add on that?
So you mentioned if there were any questions or concerns, the funding commitment decision letter is going to include the total commitment amount committed to the library based on the requests that were submitted. If for some reason there is a reduction or a denial of the requested funding, that is something that you can also reach out to us about with those questions and concerns, and we can help you with next steps, as Cheryl said.
Perfect. Thank you, Kyle. So that's really all that we have for today. Thank you for attending the webinar. Make sure you join us for the next one, which is going to be on Thursday, April 27th, same time, same place, 2 p.m. If you have any questions, please feel free to come off mute or send them in the chat, or if you prefer, you can actually reach us on the hotline or by email. And then Kyle, do you have any other reminders or anything for us today?
Just repeating the reminder, if you have not certified to Form 471 for funding year 2023, Tuesday, March 28th is the final day to certify. Yeah, just if you have not certified, please do so, and we'll communicate with you on getting that addressed.